In 1980, Arnold Schwarzenegger shocked fans and competitors alike when he announced, the day before the Mr. Olympia contest, that he was making a comeback. It's 1975, Arnold wins his 6th Mr. Olympia in a row and retires from competitive bodybuilding, pursuing a Hollywood career. But he stayed close to the sport as a Mr. Olympia promoter for the upcoming years. In 1977, he released the book Arnold Education of a Bodybuilder. Also in 1977, Pumping Iron came out, which was centered around the 1975 Mr. Olympia. This helped propel both Arnold and bodybuilding into mainstream culture. Fans and competitors owe him a great deal. Few people would dispute Arnold's legacy. After Arnold's best friend Franco Columbu retired as well in 1976 after winning the Olympia himself for the first time, and after Lou Ferrigno pursued his own movie career, Frank Zane took the spotlight and won the Mr. Olympia 3 times between 1977 and 1979. Zane was a close friend of Arnold. It is reported that every year he would go and pose for Arnold and ask for his advice. In 1979, Arnold was a commentator for the Olympia and interviewing Frank Zane after his win. When Arnold asked Frank how does it feel winning it for a 3rd time, Zane supposedly answered, and I quote, "Almost as good as beating you," making a reference to 1968 when he beat Arnold on stage. This answer infuriated Arnold, who is known for his big ego. It's 1980 and the 3-time Mr. Olympia Frank Zane suffers a serious accident, reportedly while sitting by the pool when his chair broke. He lost a lot of blood and he needed days in hospital to recover. You have to keep in mind that Frank Zane's biggest challenge year by year was to gain more mass as he was a smaller bodybuilder, and this incident costed him a few pounds of muscle. He went again to seek advice from Arnold, and Arnold assured him that he still has high chances of winning the Olympia. In the summer of 1980, Arnold was spotted multiple times training very seriously in the World's Gym alongside Franco and Joseph Wilcox, and rumors of him coming back were starting to spread. Arnold was also replaced as an Olympia promoter by Paul Graham, which further increased the probability of Arnold competing. All this while Arnold was constantly denying a comeback, stating that the reason of his prep is the movie Conan, which was set to start filming in the fall of 1980. Frank Zane himself reportedly asked Arnold if he's going to come back, and Arnold denied it again. While promoting the event for the last 4 years, Arnold became an inside man. He had a lot of connections and friends, including the judges. Some of the judges at the 1980 Olympia were Reg Park and Albert Busek, both close friends to Arnold. What is even crazier is that one of the judges was supposed to be Peter McCarthy, the chairman of the Australian bodybuilding, as the event was set to be in Sydney, Australia. But he was replaced by another Arnold fan at the judge panel because he was late for a judges meeting. He was intentionally told that the meeting had to take place later. What a strange coincidence. While Frank Zane was the 1979 Mr. Olympia and he was considered a favorite in 1980, another favorite was Mike Mentzer, the 2nd place finisher in 1979. Mike Mentzer used to do seminars about training, and his concept was less volume, more intensity. And whenever he was doing seminars, he would always bring up Arnold, saying Arnold looks the way he does because of genetics, but he's training wrong. Arnold didn't like that, of course. With Frank Zane weakened by the injury, there is a conspiracy theory about intentionally weakening Mike Mentzer as well. Apparently, in the night before the show, the 1980 Mr. Olympia, Mentzer's hotel room temperature was set very high, in order for him to get more flat. I personally don't want to believe this, but I thought it was interesting to know. So one day before the show, Arnold officially announced he was in, that he was making a comeback. The reactions were mixed. Competitor Mike Mentzer was furious and even tried to attack Arnold at a pre-contest press conference. Other athletes like Frank Zane or Boyarko expressed pity that Arnold was going to return, lose, and tarnish his legacy. One factor that appeared to reassure competitors not to worry was that Arnold's conditioning was worse than previous Olympias. Although his chest, back, and biceps were back to former glories, his legs, triceps, and midsection all lagged in definition and size. Some put him at 90% of his former glory, others put him at 80%. The general consensus among fans and competitors was that Arnold was no longer a threat. The Austrian oak failed to compare to a new generation of stars, but when Arnold was announced as the winner, everyone was shocked. The audience booed, competitors stepped off stage, Menzer retired from the sport, Frank Zane went backstage and threw his trophy into the wall. It was all crazy. Arnold supposedly took a shot of cortisol before flying to Australia, which made his body hold a lot of water. Reports say that Arnold looked much better when he was training for the Olympia and also after the show, a few days later when he had a photo shoot. Arnold posed all night before the show to lose as much water as he can. Too bad they didn't have diuretics back then, isn't it? Anyway, in spite of all the boos, they announced Arnold in first, Chris Dickerson in second, Frank Zane in third, Boyarko in fourth, and Mike Menzer in fifth place. Everyone who was there that day and is not one of Arnold's minions pretty much agreed that Arnold did not deserve to win that year. The consensus between bodybuilding fans and experts is that the fifth place finisher Mike Menzer was the real winner. The show was going to be Mike's last one as he didn't want to have anything to do with the industry anymore. Another strong reason to believe that something was fishy that year at that show is that you cannot find any official footage from the show, because remember, CBS was there and the show was going to be broadcasted on their platforms. People say that CBS editors didn't understand why Arnold won while watching the footage, and remember, these weren't bodybuilding experts and it was obvious for them as well that something didn't make sense. Allegedly, CBS asked Joe Weider for clarifications and the final decision was not to air the show anymore, which in my opinion says a lot. It was the last time the Mr. Olympia contest was filmed by an American broadcast television network. So even though Arnold may have helped the industry in the past, it is also possible that because of him, the Olympia never got to be mainstream ever again. Samir Banu declared that during Arnold's 8-week prep for that Olympia, the Oak suffered a shoulder injury which affected his prep, so yes, we can speculate that Arnold was unlucky perhaps. Maybe he was going to blow everyone out of the water if it wasn't for the injury and for that shot of cortisol he took before the Olympia, but truth is that bodybuilders should only be judged on how they look on stage. Case closed. So this is the story of Arnold's last Mr. Olympia win, one of the most controversial wins of all time, perhaps only topped by the following year's Mr. Olympia from 1981, when Franco Columbu as well came back and won, but this is the subject of another video. Make sure you like this video and let me know in the comment section below if you want to see the 1981 story as well. Also don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you next time.